Hello, and in this video I am going to be reading Goosebumps by R.L. Stine, Book 1, Welcome to Dead House. Now I will probably make a series on all the Goosebumps books, because there's a website here with all the books, so I'm going to be reading them. So yeah. So that you guys, hopefully you guys enjoy it. Yeah. So, I have already read this book and the second one. They're pretty creepy. And haven't took a good look at the picture yet. But yeah, as you can see, it's scary. A bit. And welcome to Dead House, Goosebumps 1 by R.L. Stine. Wherever this means. Chapter 1. Josh and I hated our new house. Sure, it was big. It looked like a mansion compared to our old house. It was a tall red brick house with a sloping black roof and rows of windows framed by black shutters. It's so dark, I thought, studying it from the street. The whole house was covered in darkness, as if it were hiding in the shadows of the gnarled old trees that bent over it. It was the middle of July, but dead brown leaves blanketed the front yard. Our sneakers crunched over them as we trudged up the gravelled driveway. Tall weeds poked up everywhere through the dead leaves. Thick clumps of weeds had completely overgrown an old flower bed beside the front porch. This house is creepy, I thought unhappily. Josh must have been thinking the same thing. Looking up at the old house, we both groaned loudly. Mr. Dawes, the friendly young man from the local real estate office, stopped near the front walk and turned around. "Everything okay?" he asked, staring first at Josh, at me, with squinkly blue eyes. "Josh and Amanda aren't happy about moving," Dad explained, tucking his shirt tail in. Dad is a little overweight, and his shirt always seems to be untucked. "It's hard for kids," my mother added, smiling at Mr. Dawes, her hands shoved into her jean pockets, as she continued up to the front door. "You know, leaving all of their friends behind, moving to a strange, new place." "Strange is right," Josh said, shaking his head. "This house is gross." Mr. Dawes chuckled. "It's an old house, that's for sure," he said, patting Josh on the shoulder. "It just needs some work, Josh," Dad said, smiling at Mr. Dawes. "No one has lived in it for a while, so it'll take some fixing up." "Josh, how big is it?" Look how big is it?" Mum added, smoothing back her straight black hair, smiling at Josh. "We'll have room for a den and maybe a REC room, too. You'd like that, wouldn't you, Amanda?" I shrugged. Cold breeze made me shiver. It was actually a beautiful hot summer day, but the closer we got to the house, the colder I felt. I guess it was because of all the tall old trees. I was wearing a white tennis short and a sleeveless blue t-shirt. It had been hot in the car, but now it was freezing. Maybe it'll be warmer in the house, I thought. "How old are they?" Mr. Dawes asked Mum, stepping onto the front porch. "Amanda is 12, Mum answered, "and Josh turned 11 last month." "They look so much alike," Mr. Dawes told Mum. I couldn't decide if that was a compliment or not. "I guess it's true. Josh and I are both tall and thin and have curly brown hair like Dad's and dark brown eyes. Everyone says we have serious faces." "I really want to go home," Josh said with his voice cracking. "I hate this place." My brother is the most impatient kid in the world. When he makes up his mind about something, that's it. He's a little spoiled, at least I think so. Whenever he makes a big fuss about something, he usually gets his way. We may look alike, but we're not really that similar. I'm a lot more patient than Josh is, a lot more sensible, probably because I'm older and because I'm a girl. Josh's hold of Dad's hand. I was trying to pull him back in the car. Let's go. Come on, Dad. Let's go. I knew this was one time Josh wouldn't get his way. We were moving off it to this house. No doubt it. After all, the house was definitely absolutely free. After all, the house was absolute. A great uncle of Dad's, a man we didn't even know, had died and left the house to Dad in his will. I'll never forget the look on Dad's face when he got the letter from the lawyer. He let out a loud whoop and began dancing in the living room. Josh and I thought he flipped or something. My great Uncle Charles has left us a house in his will, Dad explained, reading and rereading the letter. It's in a town called Dark Falls. Huh? Josh and I cried. Where's Dark Falls? My great uncle, Dad shrugged. I never remembered your Uncle Charles, Mum said, moving Dad to read the letter. Neither do I, admitted Dad. But he must have been a great guy. Wow, this sounds like an incredible house. He ran Mum's hand and began dancing happily with her across the living room. Dad sure was excited. He was looking for an excuse to quit his boring office job and devote all his time to his writing career. This house, absolutely free, would be just the excuse he needed. And now, a week later, here we were in Dark Falls, 4-hour drive from our home, seeing our new home for the first time. We hadn't gone inside and Josh was trying to drag Dad back to the car. Josh, stop pulling me, Dad snapped, impatiently, trying to tug his hand out of Josh's grasp. Dad glanced helplessly at Mr. Dawes. I could see that he was embarrassed by how Josh was carrying on, so I decided maybe I could help. Let's go, Josh, I said quietly, grabbing Josh by the shoulder. We promised we'd give Dark Falls a chance, remember? I already gave it a chance, Josh whined, not letting go of Dad's hand. This house is old and ugly and I hate it. You haven't even gone inside, Dad said angrily. Yes, let's go in. Mr. Dawes urged, staring at Josh. I'm staying outside, Josh insisted. He can be really stubborn sometimes. I felt as unhappy as Josh looking at his dark old house, but I never carry on the way Josh was. Josh, you don't want to pick out your room? Mum asked. No, Josh muttered. He and I both glanced up on the second floor. There were 2 large bay windows side by side up there. They looked like 2 dark eyes staring back at us. How long have you lived in your present house? Mr. Dawes asked Dad. Dad had to think for a second. About 14 years, he answered. The kids have lived there for their whole lives. Moving is always hard, Mr. Dawes said sympathetically, turning his gaze on me. You know, Amanda, I moved here to Dark Falls just a few months ago. I didn't like it much either, at first. But now I want to live anywhere else. He winked at me. He had a cute dimple on his chin when he smiled. Let's go inside. It's really nice. It's really quite nice. It'll be some surprise. All of us followed Mr. Dawes, except Josh. Are there other kids on this block? Josh demanded. He made it sound more like a challenge than a question. Mr. Dawes nodded. The school's just 2 blocks away, he said, pointing up to the street. See? Mum quickly cut in. Short walks to school. No more long bus rides every morning. I liked the bus, Josh insisted. His mind was made up. He wasn't going to give my parents a break, even though we'd both promised to be open-minded about this move. I don't know what Josh thought had to gain by being such a pain. I mean, Dad had already had plenty to worry about. For one thing, we hadn't been able to sell our old house yet. I didn't like the idea of moving, but I knew that inheriting the big house was a great opportunity for us. We were so clamped in our little house, and once Dad managed to sell the old place, we didn't have to worry about money at all anymore. Josh would give at least a chance. That's what I thought. Suddenly, from our car at the foot of the driveway, we heard Petty barking at and howling and making a fuss. Petty's our dog, a white curly-haired terrier, cute as a button, and usually well behaved. He never minded being left in our car. Now he was yowling and yapping at full volume and scratching at the car window, desperate to get out. Petty, quiet! Quiet! I shouted. Petty usually listened to me, but not this time. I'm going to let him out, Josh declared, and took off into the driveway towards the car. No, wait, Dad called. I don't think Josh could hear him over Petty's wails. Might as well let the dog explore, Mr. Dawes said. It's going to be his house, too. A few seconds later, Petty came up charging across the lawn, kicking up brown leaves, skipping excitedly as he ran up to us. He jumped on all of us as if he hadn't seen us in weeks, and then, to our surprise, he started growling menacingly and barking at Mr. Dawes. Petty, stop! Mum yelled. He's never done this, Dad said apologetically. Really, he's usually very friendly. He probably smells something on me. Another dog, maybe, Mr. Dawes said, loosening his striped tie, looking warily at her growling dog. Finally, Josh grabbed Petty around the middle and lifted him away from Mr. Dawes. Stop it, Petty, Josh scowled, holding the dog up close to his face so that they were nose to nose. Mr. Dawes is our friend. Miss Petty whimpered and licked Josh's face. After a short while, Josh set him back down on the ground. Petty looked up at Mr. Dawes, then at me, then decided to go sniffing around the yard, letting his nose lead the way. Let's go inside, Mr. Dawes urged, moving a hand through his short blonde hair. He unlocked the front door and pushed it open. Mr. Dawes held the screen door open for us. I started to follow my parents into the house. I'll stay out here with Petty, Josh insisted from the walk. Dad started to protest, but changed his mind. Okay, fine, he said, sliding and shaking his head. I'm not going to argue with you. Don't come in. You can live outside if you want. He sounded really exasperated. I want to stay with Petty, Josh said again, watching Petty nose his way through the dead flower bed. Mr. Dawes followed us into the hallway, gently closing the screen door behind him, giving Josh a final glance. He'll be fine, he said, softly smiling at Mum. He can be stubborn sometimes, Mum said apologetically. She peeked into the living room. I'm really sorry about Petty. I don't know what's gone into that dog. No problem. Let's start in the living room, Mr. Dawes said, leading the way. I think you'll be pleasantly surprised by how spacious it is. Of course it needs work. He took us on a tour of every room there is in the house. I was beginning to get excited. The house was really kind of neat. There's so many rooms and so many closets, and my room was huge and had its own bathroom, fashion window seat, where I could sit at the window and look down at the street. I wish Josh had come inside with us. He could see how great the house was inside. I knew he'd start to cheer up. I couldn't believe how many rooms there were, even with a finished attic, built-in old furniture. Well, stacks of old mysterious curtains we could explore. We must have been inside for half an hour. I didn't really keep track of time. I think all three of us were feeling cheered up. Well, I've showed you everything, Mr. Dawes said, glancing at his watch. He led the way to the front door. Wait, I want to take one more look at my room, I told them excitedly. I stared up at the stairs, taking them two at a time. I'll be down in a second. Hurry, dear. I'm sure Mr. Dawes has other appointments. Mum called after me. I reached the second floor, landing and hurried across down the narrow hallway into my new room. Wow, I said aloud. The word echoed faintly against the empty walls. It was so big, and I loved the bay with the window seat. I walked over and peered out through the trees. I could see all behind the driveway, and beyond that beyond it, a house that looked like ours across the street. I'm going to put my bed against that wall from the window, I thought happily. And my desk can go over there. I have room for a computer now. One more look in my closet. A long walk-in closet with a light in the ceiling and white shelves against the back wall. I was heading to the door, thinking about one of my first posters I wanted to bring with me when I saw the boy. He stood in the doorway just for a second, turned and disappeared down the hall. Josh? I cried. Hey, come look. With a shock, I realized it wasn't Josh. For one thing, the boy had blonde hair. Hey, I called ran into the hallway, stopping right side the bedroom door, looking both ways. Who's there? But the long hall was empty. All the doors were closed. Whoa, Amanda, I said out loud. Was I saying things? Mum and Dad were calling from downstairs. Took one last look at the dark corridor and hurried to rejoin them. Hey, Mr. Dawes, I called as I ran down the stairs. Is this house haunted? He chuckled. The question seemed to strike him funny. No, sorry, he said, looking at me with those twinkly blue eyes. No ghosts included. A lot of old houses here are said to be haunted, but I'm afraid this isn't one of them. I thought I saw someone, I said, feeling a little foolish. Probably just shadows. With all trees, the house is so dark. Why don't you run outside and tell Josh about the house? Dad suggested, tucking in the front of his shirt. Your mum and I have some things to talk over with Mr. Dawes. Yes, master, I said with a low bow, and I immediately ran out to tell Josh all about what he had missed. Hey, Josh, I called eagerly, searching the yard. Josh? My heart sank. Josh and Betty were gone.